Welcome to Elevate, where we explore the intersection of leadership, culture, and well-being. Join us as we embark on a journey to empower both individuals and organizations to reach new heights of success and fulfillment. I'm your host, Annette, and together, let's elevate the way we work and live. Hello, my friends. I'm so excited to introduce you to my next podcast guest. Her name is Anna Morgan, and boy, she is a dynamo. She is a talent acquisition consultant. The name of her company is Career BFF, and she will be your Career BFF if you're looking for a new career, or if you are an HR director or someone looking to hire good employees. She is very knowledgeable about LinkedIn. She's considered one of the top 16 experts in Atlanta. So she has a lot of tips that she shared with me about LinkedIn. I learned a lot myself. And we talk about all kinds of other things. We talk about the industry trends with hiring and what the expectations are supposed to be. We talk about our fur babies. We talk about ADD. We talk about all kinds of stuff. But I think you'll find this podcast to be very useful and very entertaining, as always. I hope you enjoy. So you are the owner of Career BFF, and you've done some really cool things. Your story is so interesting. How your successes have kind of strung from what your failures. I mean, would you say that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, failure is our greatest teacher. And I remember early in my recruitment career, anytime a deal would go south or a candidate would accept a counter offer or, you know, something didn't go the way that I had anticipated, it was, just such a blessing because I'm like, all right, not going to make that mistake again, especially back in my agency days when it was tied to a commission. So,
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of
um,
important, right?
it is. And, I was definitely a late bloomer when it came to, college and getting started in the workforce and stuff like that. Always very much a people person. And so having kind of fallen into the talent acquisition, recruitment, HR space was really a blessing because I am always curious about businesses, people, how it all comes together. And once I got that very first recruiting job, pretty much haven't looked at, back. I left the industry one or two times. Once to sell ATS software, which is sold to talent
Mhm.
people. And the other was I worked in elder care. So I was like an executive director for a memory care assisted living, which at the time was beneficial because my mom was going through the process of helping out my grandmother as she transitioned. And I know I'll use that knowledge again in the future, unfortunately, as far as working with the elder population, especially those that are struggling with dementia.
Yeah,
Mm, It's
that's
terrible.
that's sad, you know.
But, I had a long career in hospitality prior to getting into staffing and recruiting. And, my strong opinion is I think everyone should have to work in a restaurant at some point in their life because it teaches you so much. Multitasking, upselling, always thinking a couple steps ahead of where you should be.
Right.
um,
I would agree with
and,
that. I would definitely agree with that because I
ooh,
did do a little waitressing jobs through college, and it
mhm,
taught me a lot of skills,
yeah,
smiling when you didn't feel like smiling, and having to be
yeah,
quick and like listen, listen for what you're not hearing, all
yes,
those things. So yeah.
yeah. No, I love the hospitality industry. One period moved to Boston after I had left Atlanta, and I believe I had actually left college at the time and moved to Boston and got a job in a high-end microbrewery. And the unique thing is that it was in the theater district. So if you have several theaters in a couple block radius, what happens? They all have shows at the same time. So in the restaurant, you get sat all at once and then everyone leaves at the same time and you
Right.
get ready for the second show. But made lifelong friends. That's actually where I met my husband of now 24 years. And then I just brought him back to Atlanta with me.
Yes. Yes. So home base is Atlanta right now.
Yes.
Yes. So, we talked about earlier about your LinkedIn, your top 16 LinkedIn expert in Atlanta, and one of the top 25 job search experts to follow on LinkedIn. Um, that's
Yeah.
pretty cool. Can you tell us a
I
little bit
know.
about
I
that?
mean,
Because
I'm
I
still
know this audience really wants to know more about LinkedIn because this actually is going to be posted on LinkedIn.
okay, perfect. Well, as I had mentioned briefly earlier, like LinkedIn has absolutely changed my life. And to receive those two accolades of, top 16 in Atlanta, and a recognized, job search expert to follow by Teal was amazing. I'm still gunning for the LinkedIn Blue badge, the big one. So, I won't stop until it happens. But
What is the
you
blue
know,
badge?
the blue badge is like a LinkedIn top voice in your space. So a lot of people get confused where we used to have collaborative articles and you would get, you know, a recruitment leader top voice by contributing to the AI articles, which
Mhm.
is totally different than the kind of top dog LinkedIn blue badge. It's a big authority builder. And really, LinkedIn recognizes top thought leaders that are known for contributing valuable content in a variety of ways. So,
Oh, so
haven't
you just
quite
gave me
figured
a
that.
goal too.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a direct will be in 2025. So this is my prediction for
Yeah.
anyone else chasing the blue badge. And this is definitely something I've learned from my LinkedIn coach, Judy Fox, is that the more evergreen content, like a newsletter on LinkedIn that we can create, that likely will increase the chances of getting noticed for those blue badges.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
So if you're not playing in the newsletter game, which I am very inconsistent, but trying to get back to a regular cadence, definitely take advantage of, building community through that longer form content, I would say.
I love that because I was talking with some of my folks last week about doing a newsletter, and they were talking about like you need to subscribe to Mailchimp, I guess.
Well, this is the newsletter exclusively through LinkedIn. So, like,
Oh, okay, okay.
I have 30,000 followers on LinkedIn. And so
Wow.
when I launched my newsletter a year and a half ago, um, people who are connected with you will automatically get an invite to subscribe. And I mean, I think I'm close to 10,000 subscribers to a newsletter, which, if you think about the community and the impact, and depending on what your goals are on LinkedIn, uh, the other benefit of having that captured audience, not only will they see the post of the newsletter, they will get an email copy of the newsletter. And then the kind of secret sauce is that with the rise of AI, your newsletter becomes searchable, kind of like the SEO component of Google. And that can also get you more podcast appearances, speaking engagements, as well as the blue badge.
Yes. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's good stuff to share with people. You
Mhm.
obviously, or you know, spend a lot of time in that area and become, you know, obviously an expert with that many
Well,
followers. That's
it's
pretty
hard
cool.
to become an expert, I think, on LinkedIn because everything is always changing. And I think for, any other leaders out there that are looking to get more active on LinkedIn, the key is to just start. And the one thing that I have to remind people of is they're always like, oh, if I share content, it's too self promotional. Well, in my mind, that's a mindset shift. So I create content in service of what did I need or would I have liked to have seen on the platform? 5, 10, 15 years ago. So turn it into an act of service and share where you've been, what you've done, things that you've learned, your failures, like we talked about, so that you can potentially impact and be like this virtual mentor without having the official title. That's the beauty of LinkedIn, is the potential ripple effect that you can have by showing up in that capacity. And so I think, would I have liked to see content from, someone who's overcome addiction, that's had a squiggly career, that has launched into her own business and is managing entrepreneurship one day at a time? Hell yes. And, add on a little bit of a sassy personality and funky haircut and, goofy things that I do. People like to join in, and they also want to be a part of your story. And, it's always a testament when you get online with somebody and they're like, "Oh, you're exactly like you seem online." I'm like, "Great. That's perfect." And then I'm
Yes.
doing my job well. But, it's progress, not perfection, when it comes to kind of building your authority in that digital space. And it's kind of like job seeking. There's no silver bullet to it. You just have to start and, put yourself out there.
So this is really great information. It's great information for me, and I feel like it's going to be great information for those out there who watch this podcast. But
Absolutely.
talking about job seekers, I mean, what is your magic that you have? Can you share your secret recipe so anybody who is out there looking, either they have a job and they're not fulfilled and they're looking for something that's more
Mhm.
satisfying or gives
Yeah.
them that purpose, uh,
Mhm.
what advice would you give them besides
Yeah. So,
contacting you,
I
which we
mean,
will have all your contact information, you know, out there for
exactly.
them to call you.
I mean, here's the truth, is that we should always be job seeking, right? As soon as you land that position, you begin your next search. And so I believe really there's several components to, you know, developing what I call career insurance, which is so that you have consistent opportunities, because so many people have been laid off in the last 4 or 5 years. And they thought, oh, it would never happen to me. And then they come to me and they're like, I haven't had to look for a job in 15 years, and I've always gotten a job through someone I know. And
Right.
this kind of circles back to LinkedIn. The power of building community is, when and if something like that happens, you're not reaching out and asking for help to an entirely cold community or audience, right? So, there's a variety of exercises that I do with people, from clarity, mindset, transferable skills. As a neurodiverse recruiter and generalist, one of my strengths is really being able to connect the dots and help people see where they can take this expertise and, build a story or a framework of why they could potentially, solve this industry's problem, or this particular business problem, which is essentially a job description. So all of my coaching is one-on-one, where I do the resume, LinkedIn glow up, cover letters, etc. And then also help them manage the opportunities, because as a recruiter, I see so many job seekers falling through the cracks on managing the expectations, and kind of like your sales funnel, right? Making sure you're doing your due diligence up front, asking about the process and who's involved and why it's open. So kind of like deal management, the behind the scenes career BFF, Jerry Maguire slash agent, you know, uh, and then helping with salary negotiation, especially for women, having to remind them of their worth, and that when they do make an ask, they're not being annoying or too much. They're clearly just trying to articulate and showcase the expertise and value, they bring to the organization.
And that's still an issue with women?
That, and then they self-select out because they're like, oh, I only meet blah 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 criteria. And
Right.
I can say as a recruiter, having worked with a lot of different organizations and teams, that the people writing the job descriptions, it's usually the last thing that these teams want to do. So, you know, not that you should shoot your shot on every position you apply to, but, you know, have a conversation first, or try to work towards a conversation before you just completely, auto eject out of an opportunity.
Right, right. So, so what do you see as industry changes coming up in 2025 for people who are looking for new careers? And
Mhm.
um, what do you see there?
Yeah, so I mean, right now, unfortunately, like white collar jobs are down and trade jobs are up. So, I'm actually seeing, quite a bit of early career people kind of pivoting and considering some of the trades. Um, AI is going to continue to be huge in the world of work as far as also hiring. So, if you're a job seeker or an executive and you're not embracing AI in your daily work, now is the time, right? Like, just start playing around with different tools, because it's going to become more and more important, to be able to interact with the AI components of the recruiting process, which are, some say that AI and automation is going to completely get rid of recruiters in 5 years. I call BS on that,
Right.
because the recruitment industry is about people. And I believe we'll eventually hit a tipping point where, I don't know about you, but have you ever called Amazon? It is, makes you crazy. And you're like,
Yes.
I just want to speak to a human that can like reason
Right.
and, empathize with the problem that I'm having.
Yeah.
So I definitely think, staying connected, advocating for yourself. If you're employed, don't wait till the new year. Start warming up your network now. The holidays is a great time to have conversations with people, or take a little time to reflect on your goals or the successes that you've had, so that you can update your resume. Um, you know, Everyone at the beginning of the year is like, new job, new new me, new job. uh, and so competition is relatively, I would say, stiff in that first quarter. And personally, I don't think we're going to see a huge pickup until mid to end of second quarter in regards to, hiring. But we've seen a little bit of an uptick in, especially in the recruitment space, which is, it makes my heart happy, because I have such, compassion and connection for everyone that works in the people business. And we've been through the ringer the
Mhm.
last couple of years. Sadly, companies don't quite value the work that recruiters do as much as other, areas of the business. And so recruiters tend to get the axe when funds are tight, and which is a shame, because
Yeah.
they're talent architects of the business. And
Right.
letting that knowledge walk out the door is a shame. So, you know, I think things are going to be interesting the first and second quarter. If you are considering making, a change, I would, be consistent with your applications. I would be very visible and active on LinkedIn. I would be building relationships with individuals at your target companies, because I believe conversations convert to opportunities. You can apply all day long, you can update your resume a million different
Right.
times, but you make sure there's balance between those activities, and that there is a third of that being focused on what kind of actions can I take in service of setting up an informational interview or a coffee chat, something like that.
So let me ask you a question about culture, because I'm a big, advocate, and I talk about culture, on this podcast and social media a lot. Like, if someone was looking for a job and but the culture didn't seem right,
Mhm.
do they Do they move on? Do they go ahead and take it because they don't want to have a gap in their resume? I mean,
Ah,
how important is
let's
all
just
that?
demystify the whole gap in the
Yes.
resume.
Yeah.
You know, I did a kind of hokey post on this one time when I was role playing, and the person says, "What's the deal with the hole in your resume or the gap in your resume?" And my response was like, "Wait, I didn't work at the gap." you know, Really, since 2020, the movement of job seekers should not matter. Like, for those of you that are hiring, especially at the top, older Gen X to boomer and traditionalist, fractional work, gig work, having second incomes is the world of work today. And, so many companies have had layoffs that I would say more than 50% of the applicants you're going to get on an open requisition will have some kind of movement in the last 5 years. And you just need to accept it and get the story behind it and move on. So we talked about the gap in the resume. What was the other question you said?
Culture,
Oh,
about taking
culture.
a
Okay.
job. If you
Yeah.
if the
I
culture
mean,
doesn't seem to fit, do you just take it anyway? I mean, how important is culture these days?
sadly, diversity initiatives have massively been cut back at organizations. So how do you suss out culture is really the question when you're a job seeker, right?
Okay.
And this is why I'm going to tie back in the importance of building your brand on LinkedIn and having some visibility and working towards starting those conversations, right? Because you can interview with all the people at the company. But what's powerful is if you can kind of back channel, have some informational interviews with, people that work in the same department or in a department that would work with the team that you might work with, to really ask those, courageous, candid questions about what do you like most? What are some of the biggest challenges the organization has? Where are you contributing to make society better? Are you involved in Habitat for Humanity or, different service opportunities? To really allow those conversations to paint the picture. And then that would give you data of how severe or non severe the culture at said company could be. But if you're not doing all those other things that I mentioned, when you get to then offer stage, it's oftentimes too late to get that information, right? Because you probably have a timeline to accept the offer. So, I think asking interview or thoughtful questions in the interview process is one way, along with informational interviews. And you can't necessarily trust every review that you see online. But it also comes back to your clarity of your must haves, nice to haves, and non negotiables. And that's where I often come into play with my coaching clients as the career BFF to really ground them into being radically honest about the red flags, those non negotiables, and then also, guiding them through a fluid process because some of your priorities may change depending on how long you've been in the process or um, what some of the other perks and benefits of the organization may offer. So it's very difficult to say. Again, no silver bullet, but I think starting those conversations can give you some really good data to determine which direction to consider.
Right. That's very helpful information for, I think anybody recruiting as well as well as somebody who's looking. Um,
Mhm.
so from an employer standpoint, are you seeing that companies are, you said that they're not investing in
Well, they tend to cut their talent teams because they're like, oh, we don't need to hire because, funds are tight or we lost these deals, et cetera. And, my call to executives and founders and those that run companies is to, you know, look at your talent team as, a bigger partner to the business because they literally are the talent architects of the work that you do. Because if you don't have the people, you don't have the product, you don't have the service, et
Right.
cetera. And so that to me in itself also sends the message from a culture standpoint, not necessarily a people over everything mindset. The second thing is that recruiters are multidimensionally skilled. As you said earlier, you're like, Anna, you've done all kinds of things. Leverage your talent teams in other areas of the business, whether that's working with your HR tech teams to streamline your process of recruiting or to work with the sales team. There's so many different places because we understand the business. We're working with all the
Right.
hiring managers. We're placing the talent. So we can easily fast track into a support role while, hiring is down and, help solve business problems and then be ready to continue recruiting. You know, the knowledge gap of what we bring to the table or the knowledge that walks out the door when we're laid off is detrimental to companies. And now with AI, we have more data and talent insights to show how it affects the bottom line. And so praise the Lord for AI and
Yes.
more data in that sense. And that's really allowing recruiters to become more talent advisors and work with the organizations on a more holistic basis. So,
Yeah. So, Anna, I was speaking at a conference. It was just a couple weeks back, and I'm talking to, you know, quite a few CFOs in the group. And, their emphasis on cost, cost is a big deal, overhead, cutting that
right.
as much as possible. And because I'm in the employee benefits world and in property casualty, they're always looking to save money in those areas. So it's a really hot topic. But what gets overlooked is the cost of turnover, the cost of, which is much bigger, the
Yeah.
cost of turnover, having employees engaged, you know,
Mhm.
and showing up at work, they're healthy and they're showing up at work, um,
Mhm.
is is a big deal. And
It
so,
is.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, the cost to, backfill a position is I wish I had data, to give more to pack a harder punch, but simple Google will give you the answer to that.
right.
And then, you know, companies that aren't investing in career pathing and building learning teams, especially going back to AI, you now have the capabilities to pull all the skills and core competencies of your top performers, your, high earners, the people that you've retained naturally, and then look at the rest of your population and be like, okay, what's missing in the rest of these employees and how can we, help them fill that skill gap so that we can, execute succession planning without having the expense of turnover. And that's where I see the missing link between, executives leveraging talent and HR teams more effectively in that way to, build those workforce management or workforce planning initiatives with
Yeah.
training.
Right, right. So it's so you really are not just the employee seeking work BFF, you're also that employer getting the
Yeah.
right
So,
people,
uh,
right?
exactly. I'm your corporate recruitment BFF and your regular career BFF. And, how the name of my company came about is directly tied to dogs because I have been rescuing dogs my entire life to the point, when I was in high school. I heard my dad come in one day from work and say to my mom, Janice, do you know that there's a dog with puppies in the basement? And my poor mom's like trying to cover for me. Well, I had picked up this pregnant dog at a retreat and she had just had puppies. And, I think my first exercise in recruiting was rehoming all the puppies because I had to market them and put up signs and present them to the neighbors and negotiate if there was going to be a cost. But one of my buddies said, Anna Morgan, a dog's best friend. Anna Morgan, your career's best friend. And then I just brought it down to Career BFF. So, who doesn't want to be greeted,
Yeah.
as our furry companions greet us, and that love and loyalty and support and all the things that come with that. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I love all the dog pictures in the background.
Yeah.
So cute. And you
Thank
showed me
you.
earlier, you got 2 over sleeping over on
Two
the
sleeping on
side.
the
Yeah.
couch. I bought this really cute red couch to go with my kind of red branding, and had planned on, recording a bunch of cute Instagram reels and TikToks, and I can't get them off of it. And if I do sit on it, I'll be covered in hair. So,
Yeah. And how
very sick.
many fur babies do you have? You said 5
I
or
have 5. Yeah. So,
5?
Um, my Career BFF mascot is Lily. She's my emotional support dog, and she comes to conferences with me and is the best networking buddy ever. And then she has 3 sisters and 1 brother who were all rescue dogs right out of kill shelters. And for the longest time, I was like, adopt, don't shop. Right? I was that
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
The first year I was profitable in my business, I saw her brother online and it was just like love at first sight. And I was like, I'm going to Tampa to get a dog. And so I made her my mascot, tax
Yeah.
write off. And now she's emotional support so she can travel with me without her carrier. And, I go to conferences to attend and speak, and people get really mad when I don't bring her.
Oh,
So,
yeah. I met her at the retreat in Rhode Island. Super
yes, I
sweet.
think for an experience like that, I might not bring her next time, but most cases, it's fun, and she keeps me calm, and gives, again, it's a great conversation starter as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I love my dog. I hate when I leave my dog and have to, be away from him for so long, and it's always so
Yeah.
nice to see him. And like you said, like, he wants to bring me, a toy or something and like, "Oh, hey," and greet me.
Yeah. And then when I take her to conferences, like, people, it's like she's being of service to the attendees because they're like, oh, I miss my dog,
Yes,
And so
exactly.
not only is she there for me, but then she ends up, eliciting smiles and laughs from people and making them, more comfortable, which is awesome. So
So, let's talk about your T-shirt. I love the
my
story
t-shirt.
behind
Okay.
this. Yeah, let's
All
yeah,
right.
like,
So
share that.
I'm in Atlanta, and I wear this Career BFF t-shirt, which kind of has like a breakthrough outline. And I was inspired by this by Sarah Blakely, who is an entrepreneur here in Atlanta. And she shared a story years ago and has repurposed it since, that she decided, well, how can I get some more exposure? She was like, I'm going to wear my Career BFF shirt. And, sure enough, she's built this empire now. And so I have them in white, pink, black. Uh, I have a, Career BFF hat, but really what I do from a like manifestation standpoint is every time I put this shirt on, I just take a minute and kind of reflect and call in the innovation, the badassery,
I
the
love it.
financial abundance and
Yes.
innovation that, I've been inspired by the amazing Sarah Blakely. So, um, I'm not making pantyhose or cool shoes, but I'm, changing organizations and job seekers' lives. So here we are.
Yeah, yeah, that's a really cool story. Yeah,
Thank
and,
you.
Anna, so, it was funny how you were talking earlier about people who meet you in person after they've met you online and they go, "Oh, you're the same person, I'm so glad." like, I actually met you in person before
First, yeah.
online. And so, and you are a very genuine,
Oh, thank you.
sincere person and just absolutely hysterical. You don't even have to like try. You're just like naturally
Oh,
funny. And
that's just the ADHD and a little trauma sprinkled in
yeah,
there. So,
yeah. Well, I
an
think
adventure.
the genuine part and the authentic part is, because you will be vulnerable and share,
Mhm,
even when you've failed. Like when we were
mhm.
talking about earlier today, um, how you failed out of college and how that ended up defining you and teaching you something. And for a lot of people who are watching this, I mean, at some point they've failed at
Yeah,
something and they had to pick themselves up, and it add it really added, to either their story or how they define their life. Um,
mhm.
and like in your case, it made you see life a little different and work harder to
Yeah.
achieve that goal. And I think it's a great story if you wanna share that with
Yeah, I
the
mean,
audience.
I love that in today's world that there are different ways for kids to learn. I was diagnosed with ADHD, I would say in the, early 80s, right? So this is before everyone had attention deficit disorder. And I remember doing the ink blot test and all these things. And ended up getting prescribed medication. And, I'm partially convinced part of the medication contributed to some of the addiction problems that I had later in life, but that's another story. Um, so I managed to get through high school. I went to four different high schools in 5 years. Again, being the oldest of five, you know,
Mhm.
bless my parents as a parent now. Whew, you
Yeah.
know, the universe has a sense of humor because some of this is coming to bite me in the butt for all the parents out there. And then I went to UGA because my mom was a majorette baton twirler for UGA, and she was in a sorority, and my stepdad had played football at UGA, and so I was like, oh, I got to carry on the legacy. Well, and this is the other thing for people that have kids or that are coming up in business, like, trust yourself. Like, I wish I had been brave enough to say to my parents, I feel like this is a little bit too big for me. Like, probably going to a smaller liberal arts school would have been better. However, jumped in, went to UGA, got in the ADD program, which meant I was in the classes with all the athletes, which was kind of fun. Um, but the structures weren't in place to help someone with my kind of brain and procrastination issues and later, drinking and drugging challenges. So, yeah, I would say after the 96 Olympics, I, was no longer in college, and my parents kind of just accepted like, hey, she's just going to go into work. So, that's when I went to Boston, got into hospitality. And then as soon as I got into, more corporate work, went back to school full time while working full time, which I think is pretty impressive.
Yes.
And, in 2006, I got my bachelor's in business from Shorter College. And, I'm really proud of myself for completing that. And, degrees today mean different things to different employers, especially with some of the places that we have high demand and low supply with candidates. I'm interested to see what the value of the degree is going to look like when my teen gets out of college or even further from now. So, um, but through that experience, completing it while working full time and then becoming a mom, definitely gave me a lot of confidence and you know, I think things happen for a reason. I just wasn't ready to go to school. And after having some practical work experience, whether it was hospitality or temping, you know,
Right.
as a receptionist, when I went back to school, I really connected with the content of, the business management classes I was taking because I had some practical experience. And that's what I was missing in those first 2 years at university, is that I didn't have any of that. I did work through high school, but it just didn't land in my body the way it did, a couple years later.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really cool. So, um, Anna, what do you want to what is the last thing you want to share with the audience that
Yeah, I mean,
powerful?
I think my goal with where I'm going with my business is, I dream of creating a career BFF movement, right? And what is a career BFF? It is, someone who champions other people, someone who is a connector. They operate from a very heart centered and important place of integrity, right? As a way of being of service to people in the people industry, right? Whoever's leading these organizations. So, how can you embody that energy that, I want to give back to the working world what was freely given to me, and that's through all those experiences that I've had. We talked a lot about LinkedIn, and for leaders of organizations, like, it's okay to be on LinkedIn. you know like, your employees are going to respect you more. They care what you care about, and so, don't hide in the shadows. Like, just take a bold step out and showcase your leadership. Like I said, be of service to the person you were 10, 15 years ago.
Right.
And think about how you can level up a community with that expertise, because what's the good of keeping it all to ourselves? We're not going to need it when on our deathbed, right? um, and so it's just all about how can you share that goodwill, good energy, and expertise that you have, by being a career BFF. So it's really, really important. And I have a soft spot for the people industry, specifically recruiters, talent, and all levels of human resources, just because that's who I've worked alongside of most of my career.
Well, this has been fantastic. I have learned so much from you today.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's, about LinkedIn, about recruitment, some of the challenges that, they have faced and how important and relevant it is. And, hopefully educationally, we've put this out there and
Yeah.
people it'll resonate with them and see that your role and people like you, what you bring to the table is, getting the right people in the right spot.
And
Um,
I have a knack for connecting unlikely connections. And where I've built a lot of community through audio events and LinkedIn Lives, I'm hosting my first in person event here in Atlanta in January. And I'm just so excited with the speakers, the sponsors, and the attendees that have expressed interest already, in regards to, being businesses and people that care about wellness, innovation, branding. And so, yeah, we're
what's the
taking
name of
things.
that
It's called
conference?
Evolve TA and
Right.
HR Experience, and it's here in Atlanta on actually my 50th birthday. So
Oh,
uh,
awesome.
come and celebrate. And I
What's
thought
the date?
January 30th. It's a Thursday.
All right, January 30th. I'm gonna put that in my calendar.
And that's been my goal, which I've shared with you behind the scenes, to lose my 50 pounds by the time I turn 50.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be cutting it close, but I'm
Yes. Well, you're
I'm on
doing
target.
fabulous.
Thank you, thank you.
Yes.
So, for any talent, recruitment, HR leaders that are listening, check out the Evolve event. Limited seats. I can only fit 120 people. It's not recorded, it's not streamed, and that's intentional because
Okay.
it's an immersive experience, like very intentionally curated. Like, I'm doing all the things differently from what I hate about
Yes.
big normal conferences. So, embracing a little bit of that rebel energy in regards to this event, but it's going to be great.
Yes, it sounds fantastic, and I'll make sure to put all that information
In the
and
show
LinkedIn.
notes.
Yes, yes, in the
Yes.
well, thank you
Awesome.
so much for
Thank
joining me,
you.
you know?
Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Until next time, my friends, remember, as we continue to strive for excellence in both our professional and personal lives, let's always aim to elevate ourselves and those around us. Thank you for joining us on this journey of growth and empowerment, and keep reaching for new heights.